Good evening, everybody. Our last meeting was before Hanukkah. Unfortunately, Hanukkah, my mother, Hareni Kaparos Mishkafa, passed away a couple of months short of 102. And I would like to dedicate this shir to her memory. It should be an aliyah for neshama. I'm also doing a series of Parsha Shirim, which will be on the Osameach site and my own site and Torah Anytime site, which where I speak about things that I mentioned at the Shiva and connect those to the Parsha. So this should be an aliyah for neshama. We're talking, before Hanukkah we broke off, speaking about the idea of love of Hashem. And we mentioned before we finished that this really divides into three aspects, says the Mesilas Yesharim. Devekus, meaning cleaving, being attached to, the modern Hebrew word we said, devek means glue, literally being stuck to Hashem. Simcha, which is one of the Hebrew words for happiness or joy. And the other idea is this idea of kina. The kina can be translated into English, as we said last time, either as jealousy or jealousness or zealotry. Zealotry means, and that's what the context here means, being extremely watchful of the good name of Hashem, so to speak, to make sure, chas v'chalila, that a person doesn't do anything which might be considered a chil Hashem. And when other people, chas v'chalila, are doing things which could be a chil Hashem, or are taking a name, showing Hashem in a bad light, so to speak, or Talmidei Chacham, or people who represent Hashem, to be able to defend them and to be able to contradict and to take up cudgels, so to speak, to take up arms, not necessarily, not literally I'm saying, but to defend the honor of Hashem, and that is called, it's zealotry actually has a very bad connotation in English, but the way the Mesilas Yesharim understands it is to be zealous in guarding the honor of Hashem's name. The first of these three that the Mesilas Yesharim is going to deal with is Dveikut. He says, "Adveikus hu sheyeh libo shel adam misdabek kol kach b'shem yisparach ad shekava yosel milefonov ulahashkiach es shum devar sulosoi." When a person is dovik in Hashem, his whole reality, his whole sense of what's going on in the world is taken over by the awareness of Hashem. Again, all of these levels are very difficult for us to understand, but they do exist. And even if a person can just go a little bit this way, to understand what that means, there's a metaphor that Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei, Ayeles ehovim v'yalas chein, dodecha yarvucho b'chol eis ba'avosa tishke tamid. Literally translated, a beloved hind, inspiring favor. Her breasts will sate you at all times. You will always be consumed with her love. This is the nature of the love that a person should have for this idea of Dveikus, that a person is, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but it's close to obsession. It's this idea that your whole reality is sort of taken over by being close to Hashem, by a sense of being close to Hashem. The Gemara in Eruvin gives an illustration of this posuk in Mishlei. Amru alav al Rabbi Elazar ben Padas. They said about Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, Shahaya Yoshev v'osek b'Torah b'shuk hatachton shel tzipori, that he was involved in learning Torah in the upper market of Tzipori, Sepharis. V'sedino mutal b'shuk ha'elyon shel Tzipori, and his cloak was in the lower market. Various explanations of what this means. One of them is the Rabbeinu Chananel says that he was so engrossed in Hashem, in the word of Hashem, in the Torah, and of course Hashem and His Torah and Klal Yisrael are all the same thing. Kitchabrichu, Yisrael, Torah, Chadhi. So really they are the same thing. But he was so dovik in Torah, so dovik in Hashem, so stuck to Hashem, that he just forgot where he was. He left his coat in a different market. It's a bit like, I guess, somebody, one has to use analogies which speak to our generation. And I think, maybe if I give an example, which is, I guess, rather simplistic and rather in a rather sort of coarse manner, but I think it comes closest to it, is the idea of like somebody who's fallen madly in love and goes around bumping into lampposts, or, puts his hat on the wrong way around. Somebody's so besotted, he's so in love with his beloved, that he's just like, stars are floating around in his eyes. He's really not there. That's what it means to be dovik in Hashem. That you're so preoccupied with Hashem and the love of Hashem and being dovik, close to Hashem, that the rest of the world kind of is gone into a bit of a fuzz. That the person in this state loses, I don't want to say loses, but his contact with Hashem kind of makes it, like we saw with Rabbi Chelbo, that he could leave his coat somewhere without even thinking about it. There's another experience. Of course, this is the pinnacle. V'hinei tachlis hamida hazosu. That's the pinnacle of that trait. For a person, mizdabek kach al boira b'chol esav v'chol sha'ah, that all the time, his entire waking hours, maybe those in his sleep too, are totally enmeshed with Hashem. But for sure, omnan lefachois b'shas avoda. He's saying, and for the very least at the time of when is davening or doing a mitzvah, im oyevhu es boira vadeshia lo advekus hazeh. He will have this dvekus, at least if it's not going to be 24/7. But certainly when a person is involved in doing something, connected to Hashem, doing a mitzvah, he should have this dvekus. Now, you'll probably say to me, yeah, Rabbi, that's easy to say. But I think he's not mentioning this here, but I think it needs to be said. The amount of somebody gets out of something what he puts into it. If a person thinks about tefillah, if he studies Musa Sfarim, if he understands what it is when he steps up 3 paces forward and starts to talk to Hashem, and who Hashem is, the amount of hachana, the amount of preparation will help him to reach this level. As I said before many times, we're so distracted in our lives by so many tirdas, as he says at the beginning of the book. This is one of the most basic levels, not on the level of Chassidus. So alachas kam v'kama, how much the more when a person's approaching these levels of Chassidus, of Dveikus, he needs to quite literally think, separate himself, put himself in a mental space where it's possible for these feelings to arise up in his heart. He hasn't got a chance of doing it unless he's prepared to spend time to introspect, to separate himself from what's going on around him. And that's the only way, it seems to me, and that's not true just of davening, of course, of a mitzvah too. Most of the time we do mitzvahs, I'm speaking about myself here, on the run. Life is so busy. I put on tefillin. How much do I think about what I'm doing in the morning? If I really think about being dovek to Hashem, what a physical closeness that is. To wrap Hashem, so to speak, around my arm. To have Hashem on my head, on my brain. The physical process itself speaks about dveikus, contact. Being stuck to Hashem, being enmeshed in Hashem. The tefillin are enmeshed in my arm. They're sitting on my head. They enclose my head. How often do we think like this? I don't know. I'm talking about myself. Not too often. But again, these are things we can aim for. And if somebody does something once a week on Sunday morning after having not putting tefillin on Shabbos, maybe it just takes 10 seconds. That's all it takes to look at his tefillin before he puts them on and think about the experience that he's going to have now. Now, true, he may not feel it, but the mere fact that he thinks about it will cause him to open up this channel which he may be able to feel more dovek in Hashem, and as I say, even on our level. Tefillah, Uberushalmi Omru, in the Yesharim it says that Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa Haya Oimed was mispalel. He was standing up and he was davening in the middle of Shemona Esrei. Ubar char, what's this word? Chabarbo, a charbabo, a chavaba, a kind of snake came and it bit him. But nevertheless, Amrulo Talmid Rabbi, v'lo higashta, you didn't feel that bite. So he said, Amrulo the Talmid of, so he said to them, V'amar v'lehem, yavo alai, something chas v'chalila should come to me that's bad. Mitoch shali bi mechaven batfila lo higashti. I was so enmeshed in my tefillah. I was so dovek in Hashem, in speaking to the Creator of the world, having this intimate, private conversation, which was so intense, and the contact was so intense, that I did not feel the bite. And he swore, this is a lashon of a shavua, of an oath. I swear I didn't feel it. Okay. Now, the Ramchal is going to go on to quote several references from Torah, to illustrate what we're saying. Vala devekas is harnu b'Torah pamim rabos. The Torah warns us, exhorts us, better, he says here in the English, a better word, that's the positive form of to warn, is to exhort us, to encourage us, so to speak. It says, La'avas Hashem elekecha, right, with all, to love Hashem and to cleave to Him, uladov kabo, uvo sidbok, another pasuk, and to Hashem you should cleave. That's also in Devarim. Uvo tidbakun, plural, you should cleave to Hashem, also in Devarim. David HaMelech says, David Amar in Tehillim, Dovka nafshi b'acharecha, my soul cleaves after you. The theme is the same. V'yinin kol eila psukim echad. The same idea. Shehu hadveikus sha'adam mistabek bo yisborach, she'enu yochol lepared v'lezuz mimenu. The idea is that a person is physically not able to separate his concentration, his focus from Hashem. It's like somebody coming back to Hashem, somebody who's in love, madly in love. All the cartoons and all the trite pictures of person, with stars around his head, as we said before. That's exactly, if one can take that as a very low kind of parable, that's exactly, and transfer that to a person's feeling about Hashem. When a certain person is, they say in English, besotted. He's in love to the extent that he just can't get his beloved out of his mind. Everything, just everywhere he goes, he's stuck to that, stuck to his beloved. This is the idea of Devekus in Hashem, quite literally. As we said before, this total 24/7 Devekus is the highest possible level of this. But nevertheless, Chasidus requires, for a person to have reached beyond the level of a Chassid, it requires that at least at the time of davening or when he's doing a mitzvah, that should be his feeling. Okay. So, we said before that V'amru Zichron Levracha, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, the Reish Lakish said, B'shlosha l'shona shel chiba, chibei v'kadosh Baruch Hu Israel, that with three expressions of love did Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, express His love for Yisrael. V'onu lameidim, and we learn these all from the incident of Dinah and Shechem. Shechem, who was the son of Chamor, if you remember, he saw Dinah, and he had so much love for her that he took her illicitly, and he wanted to afterwards to marry her. And if you remember that the two brothers Shimon and Levi went, and they said the only way we'll allow Dinah to marry your son is if your entire nation is going to do bris milah, which, if you think about it, is outrageous. I mean, who would agree to that? And yet you see that Shechem was so transfixed, was so besotted, so obsessed with Dinah, that he was prepared to get his father to get the entire nation to do bris milah. Ad kadei kach. In other words, strong desire and love makes even things which are almost impossible seem easy. That's the feeling a person should have. Let's now understand where these three lashonos of love are learnt out from the pasuk. It says, b'dvika, that's dvekus, b'chashika, which is like yearning, cheshek, or b'chafitza, which is, he translated here as delight. These are the three aspects of love. The yearning, the cleaving, and the delight in realizing that closeness. Vahem mamash anfei ha'ikaris. They are in truth, the three branches of this essential love. Vahainu hatshuka shezacharti. It says in the pasuk these three things. Yeah. So as we said before, Vahem mamash anfei ha'ikaris. Vahainu hatshuka shezacharti, the desire. Va'advekus, cleaving, va'anachas, va'oineg, and the pleasure and the enjoyment, hanimsa ba'esik inyono shel hanehav, when a person is involved in doing things connected to his beloved. If a person is madly in love, hopefully with his wife, and he goes out and he buys something as prosaic as a frying pan, but he has this tremendous feeling of love because he's doing it for his beloved. Anything to do, a person gets a postcard from his beloved. That's something that's just, sends him into the next world. She thought about me. I thought about her. Again, we have to reach into, the love between a man and a woman to understand these are mashalim for the love that's possible and can be translated into this love for Hashem. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically Devekus. Devekus, let's just go over that one more time and sum it up. Devekus is the feeling of the total, and I'm going to use the word obsession, with Hashem. Every time you think about Hashem, you get this tremendous, your body is suffused with this incredible warmth and happiness. And when you're involved in Hashem's business, so to speak, you have the same feeling that you were involved in going out with your fiancé to buy the furniture for your living room, or doing things together, things which realize this closeness together. That's the Vekas. The next thing we're going to be talking about is Simcha. Hasheni hu Simcha. And a little preamble about the word Simcha. Simcha is something, it says Simcha Mazos. What is Simcha? There's a Gemara in Sukkah which describes a measurement called a tefach someach, or a tefach tzochek. A tefach, as we know, is a hand's breadth. It's the distance between here and here. The Gemara in Sukkah says there's another measurement called a tefach someach, a happy tefach. How can a physical measurement be happy? Really what it means is a tefach, but just a little bit more. It's what we might call a maxi tefach. Why did Chazal give the name, the concept of a slightly larger tefach? It's still a tefach, but it's slightly larger. Why did he give it the name of a tefach sameach, happy, a happy tefach? And the answer is that all true simcha is the idea of expansion. All true simcha, in the secular world, the idea of simcha, of happiness, is to get out of it, to lose yourself. The Jewish idea of simcha is a person expands the sense of who he is. For example, when a person gets married, so his perception of himself is not just now himself. His perception of himself is expanded. It's me and my wife. When he has children, B'ezrat Hashem, the simcha is the idea of being connected outside of myself without losing myself. It's still a tefach, but it's an expanded tefach. The expansion that a person feels, the connection to beyond, that he has expanded in some way, but he hasn't lost touch with who he really is. This is the Jewish idea of simcha. That is true simcha. The idea of connection to beyond without losing who I am. And this is an ikar godel of avoda. Hasheni hu hasimcha. The second manifestation of loving Hashem is simcha, joy. Vu ikar godol ba'avoda. This is a major principle in divine service. That's David HaMelech spoke about this in a very positive way, and he said, serve Hashem with gladness. Gladness is something which is a two-way street. The simcha that you plug into your avodas Hashem, comes back as an expression that you do whatever that avoda is, that tefillah, that mitzvah, with simcha, with happiness. It's a virtuous circle. It's something which is feeds on itself, expands itself. The more you put into, the more simcha you feel when you put into the mitzvah, the more you express the mitzvah with simcha, and that leads to a person feeling more simcha for the mitzvah. Come before him with joyous song. The also says, "Vatzadikim yismachu v'yalozu lifnei Elokim v'yasisu b'simcha." Another pasuk. V'Omer Rabbeinu said, "Zichron levracha in Shabbos, ein hashchina shora ela metoch simchas shel mitzvah." The Shechina, the divine presence. How important is it for simcha? Is that the nevuah cannot come to a person, or any kind of Ruach HaKodesh, any kind of divine inspiration can only come to a person through simcha. Now again, this has to be a simcha shel mitzvah. We're not talking about people, just losing it, getting out of control. We're talking about the simcha coming from the mitzvah and the mitzvah being expressed through simcha. This is something which causes a person to merit some form of divine inspiration, which can vary from Ruach HaKodesh all the way up in the days when there were Nevi'im amongst us to Nevuah itself. Nevuah was impossible without simcha. That's the Gemara in Shabbos. Ein hashchina shora ela mitoch simcha shel mitzvah. Vala posuk shezacharnu lamala ivdu Hashem shem b'simcha omru b'medrash Amar Rabbi Evo. When he got up to daven, Yeh libcha sameach olecha. May your heart be happy inside you. She'ata mispalel lelokim she'ein koyotze boy. When a person thinks that there is no entity, nothing like Hashem, and I'm now going to daven to him, this should bring a person to great simcha. Kizos he has simcha ha'amitis. This is the true simcha. She'el libo shel odam. Always al shehu zoiche la'avod lifnei adon yisparach shmo k'mohu. She'en k'mohu. That a person has the opportunity. Hashem has given me the opportunity to be able to stand in front of him. Who am I? What am I? And yet Hashem is machshiv me. He cares about me. He thinks He's given me this opportunity to serve Him, and through that to be connected to Him. And there's nothing else, no one, no thing, no existence like Him whatsoever. He's given me the opportunity to learn His Torah. Uv mitzvah sovereign, to do his mitzvahs, shehem hashleimus ha'amiti, v'hayoka ha'nitzchi. That these are, the mitzvahs in Torah, are the true perfection, and they are the eternal value. I think we've all had the feeling, and this is true with all earthly pleasures, that when the pleasure comes to an end, there's always a tremendous feeling of emptiness after them. And the reason is because that a person, to the extent that somebody perceives that he owns something, he's happy with it. The reason why a person's not really totally happy with, let's say, he gets a new car, is because he understands that the car can get damaged, can get scratched, can get broken, can get stolen, that the car can be stolen from him or he can be stolen from the car. He may, chas v'chalila, lose his life. And he won't have the car anymore. What stops a person being totally happy with any physical possession is simcha, is a product of the ability, there's the feeling that this is mine. And to the extent that I feel I can't really own this thing, so his simcha will never be complete and will leave in its train a sense of emptiness. The joy associated with Torah and mitzvah performance is deep and long-lasting because they're the only things that themselves last forever. And that's why a person has this tremendous simcha when he learns, when he davens, when he does anything, when he does a kindness, because whatever he gains from that, the mitzvah, the schar, is his. It can never be taken away from him, as I said before. Physical objects never give us that much sin because they can be taken away from us or we can be taken away from them. And we know this intuitively. And that intuitive knowledge stops us really being able to be sameach in them. But Torah and mitzvahs, which are being close to Hashem, and they're ours, we take those with us. Person doesn't take from this world riches, he doesn't take anything from this world. He takes his Torah and mitzvahs with him, and a person intuits that, and that's what gives him the simcha. V'omar Shlomo, b'moshel chachma. In Shir Hashim it says, Moshcheni acharecha norutza hevi ani hamelech chadorov nogilo v'nismecho boch. Draw me, we will run after you. The king has brought me into his chambers. We will rejoice and be glad in you, as I said. The further a person is zoicha to enter into the quote-unquote chadore knowledge, the chambers of knowledge, the more, so to speak, he's dovek in Hashem. And the more tigdal bo asimcha, the simcha will grow in him. V'yeh libo sos bikirbo, and his heart will be joyful in this connection, in this closeness. V'oimer, and it says, Yismach Yisrael ba'oisov b'nei Tzion yogilo b'malkom. Let Israel exult in its maker, let the B'nai Tzion rejoice in the king. I think maybe we can try and go on to the end here. It's about another 5 minutes. Okay, so David HaMelech. We're back to David HaMelech again. David HaMelech higia el amala hazos shio godol. David HaMelech managed to reach this stage, tremendous high level. As it says, Omar in Tehillim, Yerav alav sichi anochi esmach ba. I may come to may my words be sweet to him, I will rejoice in Hashem. He brings another pasuk, brings a list of psukim, I'm not going to go into all of them. David HaMelech was able to v'hayaki kol kach ha'isa miskaberes bekirbo hasimcha. Joy so much rose up in his heart that shekava hasfasayim hayu misnanois me'alea umarananois biyoso oisek betchilosov. His lips would actually instinctively move and sing along with the song of his harp. His soul would, so to speak, vibrate in simcha, in sympathetic vibrations with the harp as he played it. When he was engaging in praises of Hashem, the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And umikol zeh migodel hislatus nafsho. This all came from the great arousal and the burning and the flaming of his heart. Shahayasa mislahetes besimchos lefonov. That Hashem was he was ablaze in this love of Hashem in front of Hashem. Huma shesiyem v'nafshi ashrei asher podisa, and my soul, which you have redeemed. Rabbi Cheskel Sana comments on this. He said that as a result of this hislatus of his soul, the fervor, the burning, the blazing of his soul, Hashem, so to speak, redeemed him from the shackles of physicality, that his body was able to, as we said before, vibrate, actuate in sympathetic vibration, which was with what was going on inside his neshama. Nisraim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Yisrael Mipnei Hisro Tanai Bavarusam. Now the opposite, that this was a big taina against Klal Yisrael, the lack of simcha. Hu shenem an devarim tachas asher lo avadata Hashem Elokecha besimcha uvetuv levov. All of the klolos, all of the terrible things that it says in Devarim, came as a result of the fact that we did not serve Hashem with simcha and the goodness of heart. Goodness of heart. And of course, the way a person serves Hashem, really shows what's going on inside him. If a person does the mitzvahs in a way that they're a burden, he's not really serving Hashem. He's doing it out of fear, or he's doing it out of rote, or he's doing it because everybody else is doing it. The way somebody does it, his simcha v'tuv levov, shows that he really is an Eved Hashem. And therefore it was a taina on Klal Yisrael. You're not really serving me. Shivga, yeah. V'David lefi shera es Yisrael be'es es nadvom al binyan habayis shekva higiu lamalam azois. That on the other hand, that David HaMelech, when he saw the Jews at the time when they were giving to the construction, the Beis HaMikdash, that the Jewish people attained this level of divine service. Hitpalel aleihem, shetiskayem hamida hatova behem v'lo sosur. That this beautiful trait should be fixed in them forever. Humash, because of that's what it says in Divrei Hayomim, va'ata amcha hanimsu po ro'isi besimcha lisnadev loch. See your people who are here right now, who come to offer donations, contributions to you with gladness. Hashem Elokei Avraham Yitzchak Yisrael Avuseinu Shomra Zos La'olam. May Hashem, the God of our fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, preserve this enthusiasm, this hislatus, this fervor, this burning desire in the hearts of your people, and set their hearts towards you. That is, this spirit of us serving Hashem with joy, with simcha, should remain with the Jewish people forever. Bezrat Hashem will continue next week talking about kina, being zealous for the protection of the honor of Hashem.